Hey guys, today I'm going to show you how to put together this Sharpie pen kit. Now these are great for businessmen if you're wanting to sell to businessmen. Very nice for businessmen, book authors who are signing autographs. This is kind of one of those extra mile purchases that they might make. Professional musicians who are signing autographs, pastors, this is a very handy thing for them, especially in the way of using as a highlighter, which I'll show you at the end of the video on how you can sort of modify this kit and make it for a highlighter as well. Let's get at it. This is the Marker Armor Kit from Woodcraft, and I have all of the components laid out here. Normally you would sort of go through assembly at the end of the video, which I will do, but it's kind of important. I've already ruined one of these kits in the past because I did not set everything out at the beginning. These pieces fit extremely tight, and so what I like to do is I just like to check the ends, especially with regard to this piece here. This is what your nib is going to fit, going to screw into, and it's a super tight fit, and this is where I went wrong when I first started making this kit. And so what I do is I just check the tube. I check both sides of this tube and just find out if one is just maybe a hair more roomy than the other side. It's normally very close, but sometimes you'll see that there's just a bit more room. And another thing that I'll do at the end sometimes with these is I'll actually sand the inside of the tube, and that will help as well. So once I find that out, I mark that side of the tube as being the ring side. That's where the decorative ring on this nib adapter is going to seat. So I have that, and I also, I don't know if you can see, but I draw a mark on the inside of that tube to denote that. I also do that on the cap, just to denote that. This is the piece on the cap side. I just check both sides. This normally fits really nicely. It has just a really small groove there in this ring, and it's just ever so slightly smaller on this side of the ring where that little marking is, and that really helps you get it started. So let's just quickly go over what we've got, and then we'll go into actually making this kit. So this is going to be the back of the pen, and the reason why this is important is the front also looks exactly the same, with one exception. The front is going to have threads on the inside that are going to actually screw. This is going to screw into that whenever we get to the finishing stages of this, and so you want to make sure that that is going to go on your cap. The piece over here on the body of your pen doesn't have that on the inside, so you need to make sure that you know that going in. Also, there are two nib sizes to choose from. So if you just have a Sharpie like this, this size Sharpie, the shorter nib is going to work. I haven't actually tested the longer nib. It's supposed to work with other sizes of the Sharpie. I'm assuming maybe a smaller, the ones that have the extra fine tip or something like that. But you'll have to test that out. But the short one works with this Sharpie. So we have all the pieces laid out here, and we're ready to go. Now for your bushings for this kit, I have found that the bushings fit really super tight. It's actually a really uncomfortable kit to make, just because of how tight some of the components are, so you really have to be precise. There are two slightly larger diameter bushings. Those are for your cap, and so you're going to put those, the two ends of your cap piece, whenever you're turning. And then there are two that are slightly smaller diameter that will go on each end of your body piece whenever you're turning. For our pen kit today, I have chosen a beautiful Roman olive wood blank, and I'm super excited about this. Whenever you're choosing your blank for the Marker Armor kits, you need something that's at least 5.5 inches long. And I think this one's just over 6 inches long, so it's going to be a comfortable fit. But you can see there, I'm going to have plenty of room to work with. And so I've already marked out my first cut on the saw. Make sure you leave yourself, you see I have a bit of room there, and I have some room here on the back as well. So I'm going to be able to make a cut and have room on each side. And then after I cut this, I am going to make the finished cut over here for the cap. So what I like to do is mark everything as I'm doing it. It just helps me keep track of where I'm at. So I really like to mark the ring, where the ring is going to be, because you're going to match your grain of your wood up right there. Okay, so I'm going to make this cut, then I'm going to mark on this side over here. I'm going to mark the length that I need for my blank for the cap, and I'm going to cut that as well. And at this point, I'm also going to take sandpaper and rough up the tubes after I make these cuts over here on my blank. I'm just going to go ahead and do this, so when I get ready to glue the blanks in, I'll already have that done. For drilling out the hole for the tube for these blanks, you're going to have two different drill sizes, and they're huge. You're going to have a 14 millimeter, and that is for the body, this part, the long section of the pen, or the Sharpie kit, whatever you want to call it. And then we have a 15 millimeter bit, and that's going to be for the cap. So again, with this particular kit, I think it's super important to be really organized when you start making the kit, because there's so many little things here that you have to consider, and there are a couple of extra parts that you wouldn't normally see with a regular pen kit. So now I have the cap chucked up, and I have my 15 millimeter bit on the lathe, and I'm going to go ahead and drill this hole. Now I'm not going to make you watch that process, but when you do this, make sure that you take it really nice and slow, because you don't have as much material to work with on these blanks as you normally would, because you're drilling a huge hole in the center. So some of the sides are going to be pretty thin. So just keep an eye on that whenever you're working it. Try not to overheat the blank, and just take it real slow. Now I've drilled out the cap with the 15 millimeter bit, and now I want to do the body, and I've also switched the bit to the 14 millimeter bit, and I'm going to go ahead and drill this out now. I have my blanks drilled out now for the cap and for the body of the kit, and I have the outside scuffed up on my tubes, and I'm ready to glue these in. I'm going to be using medium flex CA to do these on the inside. One thing I will say, these things do get a little bit extra hot whenever you're drilling out the holes. I let them sit for a little bit, because the heat will cause that CA to heat up, will cause it to begin to bond really quick. And so I let these cool off just a little while, and then I put these on my pen insertion tool and liberally coat them with glue, and then I will put them in. And keep track of where your ring is on this kit. So I know that my ring is going to be on this end of the tube, and so when I glue this in, I'm going to make sure that I glue it in correctly. So you definitely want to pay attention to the details on the tubes on this particular kit. And after I get them glued in, we'll come back. Alright, so I have glued in the tubes, and one thing that I have found to be really helpful with these kits is to give it a little bit of extra time for the glue to set up. The barrel trimmer, and then whenever you're putting on your bushings, if you're not careful, the tube can actually can break loose from the glue and start slipping around. So you really want to make sure it's set. Again, as I said before, the bushings and really everything about this kit is tight. It fits tight. So just want to make sure that we don't mess up our beautiful our wood, and you know, if it does break loose in your barrel trimming and you don't realize that the tube is slipping in there, you can ruin a blank really quick. You just keep drilling in and you don't realize that the tube is sliding out the other end. So just keep an eye on that, and I'm going to barrel trim all of these, and we'll be ready to put them on the mandrel and turn these. One other thing that I forgot to mention when you're gluing in your tubes is you can use some accelerator to really speed up that drying process, and I do that. I just don't you know, spray it on there and then instantly start putting it on here and doing the barrel trimming process. I wait 5 or 10 minutes and then do that. This is a very long kit, and it is actually so long that it's too long to put both pieces on the mandrel at the same time. So I'm going to have to turn these at two different times. Normally I would have, you know, one here and then the other piece here, and I would turn everything at one time, but I'm just going to have to do it the cap first and then the body. So I have everything on here, and I'll come back whenever I've finished the turning. So I've finished turning the cap, and you can just see that wood is gorgeous there. See if it'll focus in a little better. But it is mighty pretty wood. You can't create a whole lot of curvature, which you really don't want to anyway because this thing is so big. But if you have a 3/4 inch blank, you really have to pretty much make it even with the bushings. You can't do much in the way of curving it. I have curved the cap just a touch here, but I'm going to sand this up to 600, and then I will do the body the same way, and I'll come back after I've finished turning and sanding the body. This is the body part of the kit, and I've got this turned and sanded, and I've got my non-stick bushings on, and I'm ready to put my coats of glue on. I'm going to do 2 coats of thin, 4 coats of medium, and I'm going to do the same amount over on the cap, and I will come back after I have the glue done, and I'm going to go ahead and do the micro mesh as well. I'll do micro mesh up to 12,000 grit, and I'll come back after I have all that done. Okay, so I've micro meshed the body and the cap, and I've also sanded each end of both the body and the cap to make sure that the ends did not have any extra glue, so that the metal pieces will fit very snugly there. The next thing we're going to do is use our buffing wheel with Jeweler's Rouge, and then just our finishing wheel here, and I'm going to finish the body and the cap on the wheel here, and then we will be ready for assembly. Now we're ready to assemble this kit, and I've rearranged everything the way that it needs to be put in. And the first thing that we're going to do is take this piece here, this little brass ring, and we're going to insert it here at the top of our cap. And so I'm going to take it over to my bench vise, and we're going to press that in until it's flush with the top of the wood there. So now the ring is in place, and the next step is to take this piece here, make sure that you put your clip on there, and we'll press all of that into the end of the cap. Now that we have the cap on, and by the way, make sure that that piece again has the threads on the inside of it, and the reason why it has the threads is because of this plastic piece here. We're actually going to put the plastic piece inside the cap, so we'll insert it in there. And then we're going to need to take a Phillips head screwdriver and stick actually inside the cap and screw that in. That plastic piece will screw into the metal end of the cap. So I'm going to do that now. Now that our cap is finished, we'll start on the body, and the first step is to put the end piece in here, and we're going to press that in on the press. Now that we have this piece seated properly, we're going to take this spring here that comes with the kit, and we're going to drop it into the end of this tube, and we're going to drop it in skinny end first. So let me see if I can do this. There we go. So the skinny end's going to go in first, and we're just going to drop it in like that. Okay, so the next piece that has to go in is this ring here, and it's going to be inserted into the body just like this. Now this is the hard part, because this piece, for whatever reason, when they make this kit, this is almost too big to fit in the tube. In fact, in my opinion, it is too big. And so what I've done is I've taken sandpaper to the tube, the inside of the tube, and I've actually tried to sand and make that tube a little bit bigger on the inside. So I really think that is the only way to make this kit consistently without ruining your wood, because it will crack whenever you're trying to press everything together. So I'm going to go ahead and take care of that part, and we'll come right back. So now we've pressed all of the parts in the kit. We'll just take our Sharpie now and insert it into our kit. Then we'll take the nib and we will screw it in place. And so that is complete. And let's see, we'll match it up here. There you have it. One other thing that you can do is you can actually make a highlighter out of these. So I'll just demonstrate that really quickly. Take out the Sharpie. You can go to Dollar Tree or something like that, and you can get these. I have the ones that I'm using here are called Glow Line, but I'm sure there are other options. There may be even better options than the one that I'm using here. I have to modify these because they're just a little bit too wide right here to fit into this kit. So I just take a carpenter's knife and just cut that down a little bit. Nobody ever sees it, so there's no reason to try to sand it or anything like that. Okay, so we've got the highlighter in there, and we can just screw the nib on, and you have a highlighter. So there you have it.